Hey you all, Farmer Jesse here. So a couple years back I did a studs and duds video for 2019, and though I skipped 2020 while I worked on the book and moved to the farm and all those things, I figured let's get back into it and keep this series rolling. So for your viewing pleasure, or at least vague entertainment, my studs and duds for 2021. So let's do it. First things first, if you're not subscribed to this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, good on you, I say. Also, this video is highly contextual, so my duds and studs are mine and mine alone. Doesn't necessarily mean these tools will or won't work in your system or your context, but if your systems are similar to ours, then hopefully this video will offer some guidance, or at least some classic Farmer Jesse editorializations that will leave you asking, why does this dude talk so fast? Final thing, this will be my last video for a little while as I gear up for the podcast and finish up another massive project that you will get to enjoy later on. Plus, the fall garden is a bit behind this year due to a lot of rain and a lot of heat. And this is where we are on the tunnel. That needs to be planted, like in a month. So that's good. Anyway, let's kick things off with a stud. And that feels really weird to say out loud. I bought a couple of microscopes and have absolutely no idea how or if they will improve my skills as a grower or the health of my soil, but I am absolutely in love with using them. I bought them from Microscope World, and I've got links below for the models I use, and Microscope World even hooked it up with a discount code for you, at least a temporary one. They've been super awesome and super helpful. So I bought two scopes for a reason. One of them is just intended to be a field microscope, and it's relatively inexpensive and it's rechargeable. Like if you're a farmer and you just want to look at microbiology or leaves or roots or whatever, this is your type of microscope. Easy, take it into the field with you. You can bring it right out there, and if you so desire, check your compost or your compost teas right before applying them. Then I also bought a scope for photography and video, which was probably a bit of overkill. Oh, it was definitely a bit of overkill, but it has been a lot of fun. That microscope setup enables me to better bring those images to the big screen, or whatever size screen you're watching this on. Anyway, there will be more content on microscopy, but it has been really helpful for me to see firsthand the microfauna and the fungal hyphae and just the general activity in my compost and in my soil. And for instance, to realize what a difference in microbiology it makes to simply squeeze the material out of the micron bag instead of just, you know, letting it steep like you do in an extract, or even bubbled like in a tea. Like if the goal is to increase microbial presence, nothing I've found so far increases the sort of microbial presence in a liquid as much as simply squeezing the contents out. Or making a slurry instead of a filtered tea, that works as well. And I wouldn't have realized the degree of difference there that sort of squeezing makes had I not had a microscope. I've also enjoyed looking at leaf surfaces and roots and just generally exploring my soil. Or I can tell that what is coming out of the sprayer is as rich with microbes as what's inside the tank, and adjust the sprayer accordingly, because the sprayer can have a lot of effect on the quality of the microbes that come out. Anyway, Microscope has been a definite stud. Again, links below if you're interested. And like I said, Microscope World hooked me up with a temporary discount code for you, so check that out. Anyway, more on microscopes another time. But how about a dud? Basically, all of the edgers I've tried for the living pathways have been duds, or at least partial duds. This one, useless. This one, also pretty useless, though perhaps a little less useless than the first. Like you could probably manage pathways on a small scale, you know, with pushing this thing around, but honestly, I like the hook hoe from Haas a little better. It does pretty solid work, just breaking up the rhizomatous grasses and keeping them out of the beds. And I really do like this Greenworks edger for that too. You know, doing that really efficiently, but it's still not quite effective enough, you know, for this purpose, and it's expensive. If I wanted a nice clean line, it would be perfect, but in order to effectively keep the paths out of the beds, it really needs a tiny hook in there, almost like a very miniature tiller blade or something like that, to sort of pull the grass as it spins out of the beds. The edger cuts, but it doesn't yank, and the reality is that I just need a mower and edger combo, because having two tools for this job is ridiculous. I don't need a mower and an edger, I need a mower edger. And not to mention that the two together are not affordable in the least. I can swap the batteries back and forth, which is nice. And my Greenworks mower and edger setup is, really functional if you've got $600 or so to spend on pathway management, which is both tools plus the batteries, but it's just expensive. At least the batteries are interchangeable, that's not much of a consolation. To be sure, this setup has saved me a lot of time, and I love the Living Pathways dearly, but having two expensive tools that only do one singular job is maybe not great. And before I got the edger, I was still using the bush blade on the weed whacker, and that's totally effective. And of course, the weed whacker has many uses on the farm, but that had the same problem of not pulling out the grass from the pathway. It just kind of chops it in half. Maybe something could be welded, so that's worth exploring, but it's just a cutter, and I want a cutter puller that also doesn't spray soil everywhere. Is that so much to ask for? For more info on my Living Pathways, yes, including what's in them, watch this above video. Okay, another stud, my tiny overworked worm bin. These little dudes have been cranking it out. I bought this worm bin from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, but there are so many different designs out there for worm bins, so it does not have to be this one. You could easily just stack a couple trains. You could easily just stack a couple totes with holes in the bottom on top of each other and have a sort of easy worm bin. But the short of it is you don't need like a big worm bin or a big operation, because a small amount of vermicast goes a really long way if you use it well. Also, been adding more mature wood chips to it has really seemed to make the worms happy and very vigorous. A tip I heard from Nicole Masters on John Kemp's podcast, and she was also on our Southern Hemisphere series of the No-Till Market Garden podcast, which you should go check out. I'll put that link up here. Okay, another dud, wind strips. I did a video about them earlier this year, and honestly, in my system, they just don't really fit well. We do over 1,000 starts every week. I mean, that's kind of a minimum, and since June, we've done maybe 2 trays of wind strips, and the only reason we did was because my kids ran off with the 2-inch soil block maker, and I couldn't find it. I don't like loading the wind strips. I don't like planting with them. I don't like pulling them apart. I like them more than cell trays, but they don't hold moisture well. Not that they don't or can't work. They certainly can and do for many people. Just not my thing. My dud. And they're pretty expensive, so we're gonna sell ours and double down on soil blocks for the 13th straight year. All right, so overall I didn't add a ton of new tools this season as we adjusted to the new farm, but I kept some tools I thought I would never use again. So let's rapid fire some of those tools that still do or don't work on our system. Some of those studs this year have been the rotary plow for raising beds. That has saved us a ton of time and energy getting our beds up and helping us deal with our hellacious drainage issues, especially in a year that has already seen upwards of 50 or so inches of rain. Yeah, I hadn't been using it at all for like 4 years, and then this year I was really glad I hadn't sold it. The tine rake weeder. I use this more for raking beds and incorporating amendments and cleaning up after arugula harvest than I do for, say, weeding, because it doesn't really work that way. But I really love it. It's a great tool. Stirrup hose, always. I farmed for like 5 years before I owned a stirrup hoe. How was that possible? Like, seriously, how did I survive that? You can't tell by the wear and tear. I really like this root apron for harvesting. Still, it's been super helpful, especially with all the squash we did this year. Yellow squash has been a killer for us. Wheelbarrows, obviously, I have a couple crappy old ones, and they still make this little farm chug. Oh, and a new one, stud, is the Galcon 4-zone irrigation timer. I bought it back in May, and I've loved it. It does 4 lines, 4 zones, and it has a misting setting, so basically I can have it set to mist the lettuce every 40 minutes or 45 minutes for 5 minutes at a time all day between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. all summer. And that's basically the biggest reason why we can have summer lettuce and have it be profitable, because I'm not having to fiddle with the irrigation all day when it's like 102 degrees and the lettuce is happy. And maybe more on that system for another day, but it's great. But I like that Galcon timer in case you're looking at it. Probably should get it off the ground, but it's great. Shout out to Stainless freaking Steel this year. Our wash pack station has been jamming. We got a lot of stainless last winter from a restaurant supply company that had a surplus for unfortunate reasons, but it included several tables and a 3-compartment sink. It feels super pro around here right now. And speaking of pro, the hands-free root washer that built by my buddy David Ladner. Watch this video for more on that. That's still cranking. We extended it out about 6 inches, and we'll probably switch out the PEX pipe for a more light resistant tubing at some point, but I still love this thing. Petra sent me this sprayer, so full disclosure there, they sent it to me, and it is pricey. but it is absolutely amazing. I truly would buy one if I didn't already own one. They make another sprayer that I've also trialed that has to be plugged in to operate, but the cord made it kind of non-starter from our farm, since, I mean, basically I would have to drag an extension cord around an acre. It's also a little loud for my taste, and the mist is a bit fine, which makes me concerned a little bit that the pressure at the nozzle might affect the microbiology, but I have not tested that, to be clear, just my impression, but I could test it with the microscope. Yeah. If it's nutrients you're after and not microbes, then perhaps that could be a great sprayer for you, especially if you don't have to go far. I do really like the finer mist for foliar sprays, for nutrient applications. And just so you all know, in terms of stuff people send us, that one, we mostly turn them down because we prefer to buy things so we can have a more objective view when I'm sort of telling you about them. But two, I tell anyone who sends us something there is no guarantee I will mention it here or that I will mention it in a positive light. So Petra, for example, did not pay me to endorse it, but I really do think it is a great tool and a huge time saver if you're doing an acre or whatever, or an acre or plus. Smaller scale, you can probably get away with a pump sprayer. Also, speaking of full disclosures, Josh Sattin's Broadfork guy, Larry, sent me this Broadfork, and I've really love that too. Genuinely, it is really the best design I've used for a Broadfork so far. It's lightweight but sturdy, and although I generally prefer 4 tines to 5 because if the tines are too close, the dirt will stick, the design allows for that, so I love it. It doesn't stick. It's been great for compaction issues. It's been a lifesaver this year, or a plant saver, you get it. Okay, so let's see. The Jang Cedar with the double disc specifically, still a stud, always will be. How about some quick duds though, or pseudo duds at least? The 4-row pinpoint cedar, I've tried so much and it just does not love our mulches. Starting to suspect it never will. The Earthway has actually been a little bit more useful this year in the past couple years, as I'm using it to side dress crops with compost or amendments. Crops like our tomatoes, you know, of course, but also like our fall crops that have been beat up a little bit with a ton of heat and rain this year. The belt on the Earthway has to be tight though, and the material has to be pretty dry, otherwise it won't work. So the Earthway is kind of moving out of the dud category a little bit. I'm using it a little bit more, so that's noteworthy. Still not using the paper pot system, but still love the paper pot trays from paperpot.co. They are our go-to microgreen trays, and we can fit a ridiculous number of soil blocks on them. They're super sturdy. It's like 1.5 times our regular trays, so it saves us a ton of room in our tiny makeshift greenhouse for the year. Anything else? I think that's it for now. What have been some of your studs and duds this year? Let me know in the comments section. Are there tools you'd like us to trial? If we can fit it in the budget, we will, and then perhaps Suds and Duds 2022 will feature them, or just another video throughout the season. I'll probably trial some of the Growers & Co. tools this year. I've been wearing their knee pad pants this week, and they're kind of amazing. I super love them, and you know how I feel about the straw hat from them. Any other tools we should check out? I really want to trial some soil injector options, or invent one or something. Anyway, let me know. Otherwise, like this video if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and other than that, y'all, I'm gonna take a little video break, as I said, but I promise it will be worth it. I hope. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. And if you're still watching, that right there, that trampoline, critical farm infrastructure.